Hi, and welcome to A Drummer's Guide to, the podcast all about the things that it takes to be a professional musician. My name is Emily Dolan Davies. I have been a drummer for the last 26 years, professional for the last 17, and helping other musicians since 2018, and that is why we are here. So I decided to open up a suggestion box last week to make sure that I was kind of answering questions that were really relevant to people. The uptake has been rather large, I'm not going to lie. So yes, I have quite a few weeks worth of content. But if you are someone that is listening right now, maybe has listened to a few episodes before, if you'd like to add your questions to my suggestion box, if you go over to my Instagram, hit the podcast suggestions highlight, and then you can find the link there to go and just add your own question. You can stay anonymous, or if you want to shout out, that's fine. Either way, I just want to make sure that people are able to have some sort of insight. And again, as always, this is just my personal insight. This does not make it concrete. It's just my own experience, because we all have our own things. But I do find that there are some universal experiences that we all have as humans. It's not even about being musicians, just as humans generally. Because I do know that there are also some non-musicians that listen to this. And hey to you, please feel free to ask questions as well, because I'm just into the whole human thing. I don't even know. But anyway, right, so let's get on to so this is officially the first question from the suggestion box, and it was the first question that I had in, and instantly I was like, oh my god, okay, this is a lot, but I would like to speak on this. I'm going to find this quite hard, I'm not going to lie to you, so please bear with me. There will be a lot of train of thought and just kind of like, I'll try and be as concise as I can. But yeah, I think I have a fair few things to say on this, so we'll see. But anyway, so I'm going to read you the question. It's from an anonymous person. So I've written it down so that I say it properly. Right, so here we go. So the question is, being an international non-white female drummer, I always have to prove and work 200% more to get to the same place compared to someone with the correct demographic, gender or background. I've got the experience, talent and professionalism, but can't beat the boys club and nepotism unless the gig or show is on stage and they want to tick boxes and feel good about themselves by being so welcoming. So, this brings up so many feelings for me. I can't even begin to say. Now, I will start out by saying, look, if you're not able to view me, I will tell you right now, I am the whitest of white people. It is depressing. I did one of those, the like heritage ancestry tests. When I tell you, I was hoping for just something, but no, it came back 99.99999% like British Irish. I'll take the Irish, I'm happy with that, but it was depressing. I wanted something. I wanted like a little bit of African, and that would have made sense for the rhythm and the love of like rhythm and all of that, and the food, the love of the food. Same with like, I wanted a bit of maybe Japanese, because I'm obsessed with Japan and their culture and their food and all of this. But no, just very, very white. It's depressing. But anyway, so I obviously cannot speak on that front. I obviously have grown up with many different cultures, but it is not the same as being in the skin. So I recognize that to a point, so I don't have a lot of insight, like personal experience on that front. Obviously I have personal experience being a female. I think that's slightly obvious, but I really wanted to let you into my way of seeing this, but also helping hopefully this person in kind of moving forward, basically, because it's very difficult when we have, we all have beliefs that guide us, that make us make specific decisions, that affect our actions in everyday life. I have recently found out about a very substantial core belief that has affected me since I was about probably 4 years old that I didn't realise, and it's wild to realise at 37. Oh goodness, right, yeah, that explains a lot of my life choices, behaviours, and it hasn't necessarily been a healthy thing. So anyway, I won't go into that. That is not what we're talking about. We are talking about this question. So I think obviously I have my own thoughts and feelings about being a female in this industry, and I will talk to you about my background, my experience, and hopefully that can shed some light and hopefully some proactive and, of course, because it's me, positive spins on dealing with this train of thought of like feeling like there's a boys club and feeling like you don't fit into the situation that is the music industry. And yeah, like I get it. I totally get it. So for a little bit of context for what I'm about to say about my experience, I need to just say that I was brought up very much in a household that me and my sister weren't necessarily like, my parents didn't believe in bringing us up with gender roles, if that makes sense. So it was very much like, you're into what you're into. It's not because you're a girl you're going to have dolls. If you show a predisposition like to a doll, fine, you can have a doll, but that's not a given sort of thing, you know. I will say that my mum definitely dressed me in dresses though. Like, even though I hated dresses, I still don't like them to a degree now. I might wear one like once a year for a wedding or something, but or a very special occasion. But yeah, so I was brought up very much with not understanding that. Well, no, let me rephrase. I was brought up believing, and to a degree I still believe this, I really do, and call me what you want for it, maybe it's ignorant, I don't know. I still believe that all humans are the same, and not like, we're all different, but we are all connected and we're all human, and therefore gender does not define anything about us. Not for me, at least. Like, that's how I've always seen it. And going through the music industry from when I was 11 years old, I just was like, I don't see a difference between me and, say, that male drummer over there. Genuinely, never even occurred to me. Like, it literally never occurred to me. And that was the same for gender, that was the same for race, that was the same for ethnic background, that was the same for upbringing. It was just like, nah, we're all the same. The only difference would have been experience. Oh, that person is more experienced than me. They are doing the thing that I want to do professionally or whatever. But aside from that, I never saw a difference. I just didn't. And I do put that down to how I was brought up, which I'm so grateful for. But at the same time, sometimes I do find it difficult to relate to questions like this because it's just not my experience. However, what I will say is that when I met Charisse, who is like my best friend, she's also a drummer, she plays with Simple Minds, she's a wonderful human. We met each other literally the day that we started playing drums when we were 11 years old. I mean, it almost sounds like it. I mean, when I tell you the journey that we both got to that day meeting together at 11 years old behind the kit, like, so many things could have been different, but it just ended up that way. But anyway, as I started hanging out with her and being exposed to a different way of seeing things, her upbringing, because for those that don't know, Charisse Afotu Ose, she is mixed race. She is Welsh, English and Ghanaian, amongst a couple of other things, a little bit of French in there, and various other things. Basically, she was brought up with the belief that because not only are you female, but also in society you are seen as black, you are going to have to work harder. And that was instilled with her from very, very young, and that was to do with education, that was to do with being a professional drummer, like, it was that. So I was exposed to that, and I did take on a little bit of that kind of belief that, oh gosh, right, so because I'm a female I'm at a disadvantage. And I always struggled with that, I will be honest, and there was half of me was like, no, that's ridiculous, like, it doesn't make sense. But then at the same time I'd be like, but I have to respect that, and maybe that is true. Like, two things obviously can be true, and I think very much your approach to it can affect it also. So anyway, I think it's worth just saying that that's kind of my experience growing up, and obviously coming into the industry, certain things supported the belief that we are all the same and it doesn't matter. Certain experiences supported the belief that because I'm a woman it is harder and therefore I won't get exposed to certain opportunities. And yeah, I have an experience across all of that. And the way that I see it, and again, let me first off also say, I really don't want to, this is this person's experience and that is valid 100%. And I am not here to say that my perspective is correct or not. It's not. It's just my experience. That's all it is. And I want to respect your experience. And again, this is something that I really learned growing up with Charisse. It was just like we had very different experiences in some respects. And because we had different experiences, both were valid. Absolutely, but it didn't make anyone less than the other, but sometimes it was very difficult to kind of understand, but I made it, obviously. I was like, no, I want to understand, obviously. So, and there's only so much I can get from a question like this. And can I also just say, thank you for the openness and honesty that you've put in this question and how much information you've put in this question, because let me tell you, can I just call out some of these suggestion box people? You ain't even asking questions, you're just saying words. And I'm like, okay, what's the question? Like, give me detail, because the more detail I have, the more specifically I can go into it and relate it to my sort of like experiences and all that sort of stuff. So let's get back to this. So from my experience, in answer to this person, I will say that, yes, I believe that because, and again, I can only speak as a woman, because, and I will say that this is much more prevalent back in the day than it is now, and I will go into that, because I didn't fit into the mold of being a white, straight male, I did miss out on opportunities. I know of specific gigs that didn't even bother considering because I was a woman. Now, I can't speculate really as to why they came up with that idea or came to that conclusion that they didn't want a woman. I have my own theories, and at the end of the day, everyone is going to have their preferences. Now, what I will say, because I think that it's really interesting to me, this acknowledgement of when, what did they say? They said, unless a gig shows up, that the gig wants to tick boxes, as it were, and then they sort of pat themselves on the back about being so welcoming to a more diverse band. Dude, I've been in that situation. Like, there are situations that I've been in where they've wanted an all-female band, for instance. And to a degree, and I won't talk about this because it's not fair, they didn't actually care whether the band could play, to the point that I had to fight to actually play the parts. They wanted to put the majority on track and essentially me mime. And I was like, no, I've learnt all this. And they were like, oh, really? And I would play it and they were like, oh, okay. And they're surprised. Now, look, that's their problem. That is nothing to do with me. I've just come in and done the job. Have I changed their mind about what to expect from a woman on a gig? Yeah, maybe a little bit. And therefore, I feel like, cool, all right, I've helped the situation as a whole, because I think that, and weirdly, I've been learning about this in my degree recently, this idea of kind of othering and how, you know, groups of people are stereotyped or whatever, but often there have been often those stereotypes are broken down not by one group looking at another group, it's actually by individuals connecting. So I think that if you can kind of take on the position of like, right, maybe this is the status quo, maybe by being a female international non-white drummer, as the question asker is. I should make up a name for the question askers. Anyway, as this question asker is saying, if you're all those three things and you feel at a disadvantage and you feel that you are being stereotyped, or you feel that, you know, there is a disconnect between, say, the rest of the band because they're just trying to tick a box, dude, just come in, be as professional as I know that you probably are by the sounds of it, and just do your job, be personable, create friendships, and just show that this never needed to be a thing in the first place. Because I was very much taught as well, so this was from my teacher Mike Dolbear, who also would say, look, to me and Charisse, look, because you're women, it is going to be harder for you. Like, it's just a fact. And at the time that we came up, when I tell you, in the UK, there were probably 3 female drummers that I knew of, maybe four. But doing like high profile gigs, 2, maybe 2. And therefore it really was a different landscape. Thank goodness it's changed. But he sort of brought us up saying, look, and this is why I say that he's like my third dad. So Charisse's dad is my second dad, and then Mike Dolbear is my third dad. He's like, girls, you've really got to just nail it. Whenever you're coming into any situation, you've got to nail it. And although maybe that might seem like, oh, that's not fair, that you have to work harder, the way that I chose to see it, and I'm very big into how you choose to see things, because I think multiple things can be true at one time, 100%. There's no such thing as just one or the other, or black and white thinking. There is a whole scale of things that can be true at one time. And I think that whilst one person would say, oh, I have to work harder to get to the same place, the way that I chose to see it is like, all right, yeah, that is true. But the net result is that I'm going to be more experienced, which is a great thing. And when things go wrong, which they will, there will always be adversity on gigs. And whether that be during an actual show, if you're like above the experience of, say, a male counterpart. I mean, it's so ridiculous talking male-female. It's so ridiculous. I can't understand. All right, no, let's say this. Say you're more experienced than another band member, and in that moment you step up. That's all that matters. Like, it literally doesn't matter. So you're able to do the job and then some. Like, you are bringing more to the table. Lucky them. But what that means is, net result, you're doing a better job, and also you will get recommended for more jobs because you are a safe pair of hands. You are here, you are nailing it. You just so happen to be a female. You just so happen to be non-white. You just so happen to have and be an international drummer. It's painful, I think, to come to terms with the fact that by virtue of just being who you are as a person, you have to work harder. But once you kind of accept that and just go, all right, well, I guess I'm working harder now, then you do bring more to the table. And at some point there is a shift that happens. I promise you there is a shift, and it becomes about who you are as a person to get on the gig. And if being a female happens to be part of that, so be it. In the same way that if it was a middle-aged man, let's say that the reason that they've got on the gig is because they happen to be really positive, like a positive person. It's a disposition. It's more desirable than being grumpy, a grumpy git. And yes, that's not the same, but it's, what I'm saying is there's so much that goes into creating situations. And the other thing is that lineups can be so fluid. People are coming and going all the time, and I think you do end up kind of being drawn towards more suitable gigs, not just musically but personally. That's my experience, at least. What I also will say is that, and again, this has come back to Mike Dolbear, is that although he said to me and Trish, you have to work harder, what he also said to us was like, look, you are also going to get opportunities because you're women, which is true. Like I said, I got asked multiple times, I've been asked to be in all-female lineups, or they've wanted a female in the band to kind of balance it out, or whatever else. And he said, that's going to happen. Like, take that as a given. Now, that will get your foot in the door. Now, what's important is how you stay in that door and how you walk through that door. And the only way you're going to do that is by doing a good job. And at the end of the day, that's all that actually matters. Like, it's literally all that matters. So if you're in a situation where there's, say, an artist that wants to pat themselves on the back by being very inclusive. There's this awful term that used to get thrown around if they wanted a Benetton band. I don't know if you know what that means, but so Benetton was or was, I don't know if they still exist, a clothing company that very much embraced sort of like diversity in their campaigns and stuff across different like cultures and all that sort of stuff. And that was the kind of going term. Oh yeah, we want to employ a Benetton band. Across genders, race, cultures. So that is a thing. That is a thing. I don't know if it's still a thing. I haven't heard that term in a long time, but whether it's spoken about or not, it is. And actually, you know, I've also been in situations now where being a white, straight, middle-aged man is a negative for a band. So there is a bit of a shift sometimes in the other direction. But I think that the whole landscape is definitely changing. I will say that. And it's definitely been changing quite drastically since over the last, like I say, 26 years I've been playing. Thank goodness. And I think that although, yes, like there is no doubt that this is an element. And what I will say also is that, again, I want to acknowledge that this is your experience, and I'm not here to say that your experience is incorrect. It's not, 100% not. I am not undermining what you're saying or what anything like that, because that's all this life is all of our experiences. I will have certain experiences that you might be like, I'm not sure about that, but I'm sorry that you actually feel like that and have had that experience. It's horrible. I think because you kind of lose a bit of your own autonomy and control, and you're kind of at the mercy of other people as to what kind of opportunities you're exposed to. However, what I would suggest is just focusing on, first of all, the things that you can control, such as your ability, and you know, just seeing these things that might be really frustrating right now as positives in a way, and seeing it as an opportunity to kind of break those barriers. You know, if you're seeing it as a boys club, all right, well, again, this is just because of the way that I was brought up. I don't know why. I've always got on with lads. I just have. I'm a bit of a tomboy, obviously. I don't know whether you've noticed, but I am. I'm a tomboy. I get on with dudes. I really, really do. I really like, you know, girls are great too, but sometimes I find it very hard to connect on a very feminine level. And I've been like that since I was very, very young. That is what it is. I don't know what that means. I don't need to know what that means. But because of that, I kind of, and I'm not saying that this is correct, but I certainly know how to fit into a boys club. I do. I know other musicians that are they're very similar to me. They just know how to hang with lads and to be part of that boys club, and it becomes a non-issue because it's like, oh, that's just you know what I mean? Like, it's just another one of the guys. Now, I'm not saying that that is positive, because maybe it's bad that I'm not acknowledged as a woman. I don't know, but to me it's not that important. To me it's just about, you know, 4, 5, 6 musicians being on stage, playing, doing a good job. The fact that I happen to be female, irrelevant to me. If it's relevant to someone else, that's their issue. You know what I mean? If they want to miss out on us working together, that's fine. I move on from that, because I'm not really interested in being around that kind of energy. But of course, if you're coming up in your career at the moment, it's very difficult to, like, maybe you feel like you can't be as choosy. Now, let's say that you do take on a gig that is trying to tick boxes, as it were. The way that I see it basically is, if you feel like you have to be 200% better, well, that means that you're 200% better than anyone else in that band, or 100% better than anyone else in that band. You know what I'm trying to say. That net result is awesome. And yes, it's harder work, but you would have got there anyway. Like, we're all just trying to be better all of the time. If this is your motivation to get to that next level, great. To me, net positive. I love it. The second thing is, again, if you're in there because of a box ticking exercise, it means that you've got your foot in the door. And yes, it's not the ideal way of getting there, but I'm sorry, at some point it's just like, you know what, I don't care. And obviously there's levels to that. Like, there's certain boundaries that we all have. There are certain things that we are willing to do. There are certain things that we are not willing to do. For instance, me personally, I'm not willing to sleep with someone to get on a gig. Absolutely not. I'm also not willing to do things like dress scantily to get a gig, like to play on a gig scantily clad, which I have been asked to do and I've said no. And that's my own personal thing. It's just simply that I want to be seen as a drummer first, not as a woman first. And that is this is my own bias. That is my own upbringing, my own journey. I have many reasons for that. That doesn't mean to say that if you're happy playing as a drummer or a guitarist or whatever in a bikini, like, mate, all power to you is all I can say. I've got a lot of respect for that, because it's like, yeah, man, if that empowers you, do it. Like, absolutely. But the point is, if the box ticking exercise gets you in the door, focus on staying in that doorway, walking through that doorway and into other doorways. Does that make sense? I'm not sure. I hope so. Also, there will be an element of if you've come through the box ticking route, then let's hope that you will get some exposure from that. Like, create leverage yourself from that experience. So the good thing about people wanting to pat their own backs about, look how great I am for employing these people, is that they probably want to shout about it, which is great, because you're going to benefit from that. So whether it's posts on social media, but mate, make your own posts, like, leverage it. Yes, I am on this gig. Like, don't worry about why you're there, because the other thing is, unless someone has explicitly said to you, you are only here because of XYZ, which, side note, I have actually had before. It's quite disheartening. And then they said, oh, but then I realized that you could actually play. Still a little disheartening, but it is what it is. Like, unless they've said you are here expressly because of X, Y, and Z, you will never truly know their motivations. Like, for all you know, you might be there just for your playing, and there's a chance, and I'm not saying that this is true, and certainly not 100% of the time, but there is a chance that you have created a narrative in your head because of your own bias. And we all do this, I'm certainly guilty of that, but equally you can choose your narrative to empower you a little more. Choose to believe that you're on the gig because you're a great player, and that's the end of it. And then leverage it, like, absolutely leverage it. And I think that's really important, actually, just to kind of create your own narrative from the situation consciously. Even if you really believe that, I suppose if you really believe you're there for the wrong reasons, then that's hard to pass out. But you can create a narrative from that point. Oh, I got in this gig because XYZ, but since I've been here, I've proved myself, and now I'm here because I'm a great player. I deserve to be here just as much as anyone else. And yeah, I think that's where the most power will lie, in what you're telling yourself about the situation. Because again, it's irrelevant to what's actually happening. As long as you feel empowered by it, I think that's going to be the most positive way to deal with this, because it is dealing with it, essentially. And as I say, eventually you kind of, hopefully, you'd hope, the more that time goes on, once you're leveraging these gigs by, showing, like, leveraging social media, for instance, and just being like, look at the gigs that I'm doing, it's going to show people that you're busy, you're doing the thing, and then other people will call you and they'll want you on gigs for other things, on other gigs. Leverage it as best you can. Don't shy away from it. Just be like, yes, I'm here. Take up space. You're allowed to take up space. This is something that I'm also learning in myself for various reasons. I'm allowed to take up space. I didn't know for a long time. But yeah, at some point you will end up with around people that are more like-minded. I know bands that are exclusively employing LGBTQIA plus members. Equally, I know bands that, I've mentioned this before, who had only employed males under the age of 23, under the height of 5'6", I think it was. I mean, talk about specific. Imagine being on that gig and being like, that was common knowledge. It's like, I'm here because I hit the height requirement. Like, dude. So we all have these things. There are always as long as you're on a kind of pop gig, if you like, or a gig that has a visual element or something around that, there will always be criteria, and we all will fall within that criteria. But the point is that staying there, creating more opportunities from that opportunity is more the important thing. Don't worry about how you got there. Like, just get there and move on. And as I say, the net result is going to be good. Also, like, this is the way that I saw it, was I am going to be part of the change. I'm going to be, like I said to you, so this thing of in psychology that I've been learning about stereotypes of groups, and the only way those stereotypes are broken down are with one-to-one relationships from those two different stereotypes of groups. So once you sort of create those one-to-one relationships, it kind of very slowly changes the negative stereotypes or the disconnection between two groups. So maybe if you can see yourself as, right, I'm going to help this situation in a wider sense. That's how I chose to see it. And I was just like, right, I'm here to kind of create that connection between this group of lads right now, that we are the same, we have points of connection, we have points of differing, obviously, experiences, and that is okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's more about just going, hey, we're the same. Did you not realize? Like, it's just, for me, it became a little bit about that as well, and just showing that, hello, we're all just musicians here, just trying to do a job. That's it, as simple as. So I think that, in summary, I think it's, for me, it's best to not question people's motives for getting you on a gig. And at the end of the day, the only thing to focus on, I think, is turning up, doing a professional job, like doing the best job you can, obviously, leveraging it to your own advantage as well by things like, posting on social media about what you're up to, doing all that sort of stuff, and then just creating connections with the other people in that situation too. And again, I mean, it's a very tiny step in changing the overall landscape of not just the music industry but the world. No, but it is, and if you look even 10 years back and you look at the difference in musicians that were around, the acceptability of, for instance, for me being a female as a drummer, let me tell you, like, I can't tell you how many people would stare at me, be like, oh, different, oh, weird, would make massive assumptions about me by being a woman on the drums, like just you wouldn't believe. And to me, honestly, it got to I don't think it ever affected me, because I found it quite funny, because it felt ludicrous. It felt so strange to me. So I think that was my superpower in a way. And you want to talk it, like, call it ignorance if you want, call it naivety, I don't know, but it kept me stable. It kept me being able to push forward. And so therefore it was really valuable to me. And I'm not going to undermine my own kind of experience in that. I think it's really the thing that kept me moving forward. But yeah, like I say, if you look at the difference of reaction to me being a female drummer, since I started up until probably, when did it stop being so? I'll tell you the moment that I realised that things had changed, and it was the best moment ever. And just kind of, it was a visual it literally happened in front of my eyes. It was when I started playing with the Voice Kids. That was when I realised that things had changed, and my heart, to this day, my heart was just like, yes! And it was very simple. When we were in rehearsals and the kids, and I've spoken about this before, so apologies for repeating myself if you've heard this before, but when the kids would come in with their parents, and the parents were probably my sort of age, maybe a little bit older, the parents would look at the band, who were all white middle-aged men. Not all middle-aged, sorry. Apologies, Jake, you are not middle-aged. The rest of us are middle-aged. And they would look around at the band, and the parents would acknowledge me. They would stop at me. They would pause. They would be, even if it was small, because I'm very big into like reading people's reactions. There would be a very tiny moment of just stopping and just like, oh, Anyway, but when I tell you, the kids, not a one, not even a thing, no acknowledgement, nothing. It was a given. It was just like, cool, that's the band, the end. And I was like, oh my goodness, things have changed. I love this so much. And it didn't matter the gender of the kid. It literally, it just didn't matter. And I was like, yes, things are changing. And I think that they will continue to change. I think the more, it's difficult to say, because obviously I do believe the more connected that we get, the better, but obviously we are seeing a lot at the moment of these kind of groups of people that are, these echo chambers of groups that are kind of really splintering off and creating their own microcosms of beliefs and stuff, which is going against this idea of connecting with other people and realizing that we're all the same. So I think we're in a bit of a tumultuous time at the moment, and it honestly, genuinely breaks my heart. It actually breaks my soul a little bit, the way that people treat each other. But let's just keep to the music side of things for now, and at least the UK music industry, because obviously that is the one that I'm in. Things are changing. Diversity is becoming normalised. People are less called up for gigs because of their background, gender, ethnicity, whatever else, height, haircut. It is, in my experience, less about that now. Yes, it does still exist, but it is changing. And I think by being a representative of connection, I think seeing it like that, maybe that's too much pressure to put on yourself. Maybe that's not fair. I don't know, but that's how I choose to see it. And again, all of this is just my point of view. I really accept that I probably have a lot of blind spots. And, you know, always please reach out, tell me about your experience. As I say to you, for this person that asked the question, it sucks. It sucks that that's your experience, but I hope that this episode has given you some sort of ideas in kind of empowering your situation, because I think that's it more than anything. It's this loss of autonomy, it's this loss of empowerment, it's this loss of control that is the most difficult thing to deal with, and just having to become a victim to just who you are, who you happen to be. It's ridiculous. It's on paper, it's a ridiculous thing. It absolutely is. But obviously, you know, society, all of that does impact our experiences. It does. But as I say, if you kind of take those little elements that you do have control of and just lean into them more, hopefully all those things will become superfluous. I love that word, superfluous. And you can just build a career on you as a player, and that's it. That is your merit, and that's how it goes. But look, the reality is, have I got here because I'm a female? Absolutely. I can literally tell you the gigs that I was called upon because I was a woman. But then equally, I can tell you all of the gigs that I was called on was nothing to do with me being a woman. Also, I can tell you the gigs that I was called on, not necessarily because of my playing, it was because of my performance. I can tell you the gigs that I was called on because of my disposition in terms of being a positive person and being very open and very, you know, energetic. All of these things are true. And then there are also, by the way, gigs that I was called on because of what I was as a player. But the point is, there's no right route, there's no clean route in. It's just work with what you've got, lean into it, accept that these are parts of your journey, but where you end up, those things will become less and less important. And hey, I'm not being funny, yeah? But if, let's say, if John Mayer called me tomorrow and said, I've decided I want an all-female band, do you reckon I'm going to go, nah, because you're hiring me because I'm a female? Absolutely not. I'm getting on that gig. I'm getting on a plane. I'm done. Like, I'm in. I literally don't care. It's fine. That's your issue. If you want to hire me because I'm a female, that's you. That's not, I know I'm going to come and I will smash that gig. That's it. That's all I know from my perspective. Your motivations is your deal. Nothing to do with me. But does it get me on the stage? Yeah, great. All right, awesome. Let's go. Let me go. I want to come and do that gig. Do you know what I mean? So I think it is about perspective, and I hope that, do you know what, more than anything, I hope I haven't undermined your feelings on this and your experience on this, because it's not my intention. But what my intention is how, just sharing how I see things. Because yeah, for a while, I think it was difficult to hear that I was, in fact, I know it was difficult to hear that I was put on a gig because I was a woman or a girl. But once I got past that and went, actually, I'm going to use this to my advantage, the power that came with that and the kind of autonomy and just using it in the same way they're using me to their advantage, I was using the situation to my advantage also. And I'm here. And I'm here because at the end of the day, if I couldn't play, I wouldn't be here. People wouldn't be hiring me, because for things like, for instance, recording, don't nobody care about you. They care about your playing. That's it. End of. Like, if you can't play, you can't do the job. You ain't staying on the gig. So just do a good job. Don't worry about why you got called. Don't worry about it. You might got called because 20 other people said no. I've been called because people have said no. I wasn't the first choice. Often. Not even once. Often. Second choice, third choice, fourth choice. That's hard to take. But it got me on the gig. Okay, well, we move. That's it. End of. Anyway, I hope that this has helped you in some way, and anyone else that is going through a similar kind of situation. I really like this thing of answering actual questions. So please do head over to my Instagram, hit the podcast suggestions highlight on my profile. If you go to @HeyEmilyDrums, basically, that is my Instagram. Please do suggest any questions, any topics. I'd much prefer them as questions like this, because it really allows me to get into the nitty gritty and also talk about my own experience with the whole situation. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did gain anything from this, please do feel free to like, share and subscribe. If you would like to leave a review, I would really appreciate it, so that we can kind of get the word out a little bit more to more musicians and connect us all further to know that we're all imperfect and, you know, we've all got our struggles and stuff. If you would like to support this podcast, you now can on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/EmilyDrums. And again, if you want to come connect over on Instagram, look me up @HeyEmilyDrums. Please come and suggest an episode or ask a question. I would love to answer it for you. Again, you can either give me your name so I can shout you out, or you can stay anonymous. This one was anonymous this week, but whoever you are, I really can't tell you how appreciative I am of how open and vulnerable you've been with us all. And yeah, just thank you so much. And I genuinely hope that this has helped in some way. And if you wanted to reach out to talk further, please do. If you still want to stay anonymous, message me through that same suggestion box, because I'd love to hear from you. Don't nobody be pretending to be that person, by the way. Please be kind. All right, I'm gonna go. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, whatever you're up to, and I shall see you next week for another episode. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.